Welcome to Inequalities for MAT021. For this video, we're going to be looking at examples 1 through 4, and in our next video, we'll look at examples 5 through 8. So for our first 4 examples, we're graphing our inequalities and we will write them in interval notation. Okay, so when I go to graph these, I usually just put the number that we're given in the middle. It just makes it a little easier to put my numbers on here. So I will just put 7 in the middle, 8, 9, 10, 11, 6, 5, 4. And notice I don't have 0 or 1 on my number line. That's okay. You don't have to have 0 or 1 on your number line. All right, so here, for example, when it says x is less than or equal to 7. So since it has a equal to part to it, that means for our graphing, we're going to have a bracket. Okay, anytime we have the equal to, that's a bracket. If it's less than, that means we're talking about the numbers on the lower side or the left-hand side of our number line. So we're going smaller, and I will draw a bracket facing the left-hand side on my number line. Now I'm going to write this in interval notation. So if I look at my graph over here, this is going to negative infinity. I know we don't have any negatives on here, but if my numbers kept going, I'm going to get to negative numbers and they're just going to keep getting more and more negative. And so I would have negative infinity going that way. So when I do my interval notation, that's really where I start. I start at negative infinity, and then we're stopping at 7. So in interval notation, I would have parentheses, negative infinity, comma, 7 with a bracket, and infinity always gets a parentheses. All right, let's look at example 2. X is greater than 5. Since there is no equal to, this would get a parenthesis. Okay, so again, on my number line, I'm just going to put 5 there in the middle. And fill in. All right, so since we're talking about greater than 5, we would be talking about going to the right. And again, like I said, we would have a parenthesis facing that direction, facing the right-hand side. So in interval notation, on my number line, if we look, we're starting at 5. And in this case, we continue going to positive infinity. Now, we don't need to put a plus sign. When you have a positive, it's understood. Just like when we write positive 5, we don't actually put a plus sign in most cases. So our interval notation here would be parenthesis 5, comma, infinity, and parenthesis. For 3 and 4, we have what's called compound inequalities. So for number 3, we have 5 is less than x is less than or equal to 12. Now the thing you need to remember about compound inequalities is you really should read from the x. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put some numbers on here. Since we have 5, I'm just going to start with 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yay, it fits. All right, so if I read from x, this says x is actually greater than 5. So if I have my parenthesis at 5, or my starting point is at 5, x is greater than 5. So that, being greater than 5, would be going to the right. Okay. Looking at, and we would need a parentheses facing the right. Looking at 12, x is less than or equal to 12. So at 12, 12 is actually going to go to the left, and we would have a bracket. Okay. Now, what this really means is we're talking about the numbers in between 5 and 12. Oops. So we would actually shade that whole section in between there. All right. So when I write my interval, I'm actually going to be starting at a number and stopping at a number in this case. So we'd have parenthesis 5, comma, 12, and a bracket. For number 4, we have an OR statement, still a compound inequality because we're putting two inequalities on one graph. So let me start with this first one, x is less than or equal to -4. So let's see, we have -4 and we have -1. Let's start with -6 maybe on our number line. Oops. -6. Remember when you're doing negatives, they go in reverse order. Okay, so from 0, okay, they would go backwards basically. So make sure you're careful when you do your number line there. So at -4, x is less than, so I would be going to the left. And since it's got the equal to, that would be a bracket facing the left. I would keep going. And then for the OR, x is greater than -1. So if it's greater than -1, that means we're going to the right. It would be positive. And a parenthesis since we don't have the equal. Okay, so on this you can see it's going in opposite directions. They don't overlap. So when we write our interval notation, we're actually going to have two separate ones that we are going to join with a union symbol to show that they go together. All right, so for our first one, we would have -infinity with a parentheses to -4 bracket, a capital U, that's the union symbol saying these two go together, and then we'd have parentheses -1 comma infinity. All right, so we have two separate statements joined with a capital U. All right, so in part 2 or video 2, we will look at examples 5 through 8.